Today I'm going to talk to you about how to develop a request, or if you want to talk in a behavioral term, a mand. But it's basically that first communication step that you use with a child who has limited communication skills, and you are trying to get them to communicate that they want something. So we're going to think about it as a simple request. So the first thing you're going to want to do is define what a request looks like for a particular student. All right, they might be someone who can do sign language. All right, so at first you would start with just more, right, and then you would build it up to a mean length utterance. It's a little bit longer, so it would be 3 terms. So I want more eventually over time, and you can shape that up. But this might be their mode of communication. You might have a student who doesn't have a lot of motor control, and so you want to use something that maybe they gesture towards. That's a very large item at first, so maybe they only have like a touch like that, but this is there for them to use to touch. And then as they are able to develop more fine motor skills as a fine point like that, then you can move down into a smaller version, right? Shape it down into a smaller thing so that their selection response, or whatever their mode of communication is, becomes more and more controlled. And we do that because eventually what we want them to be able to do is to use a board like this. And this might be a single page, or it might be on a communication device. So that the student can then actually use their fine motor skills of pointing to select different things and build sentences that involve many pictures, right? So if they can't use their vocal cords, they can still communicate. They can use their pointer. They can use just a larger gross motor grab, all right? But we're using their capabilities in order to communicate. So that's the whole point. What can they do in order to communicate to another person what they want? So I'm going to show you kind of how to develop these different types of communication skills. So over here I have my son, and he is going to show how we would develop a request or a mand, all right? So you can use the actual objects themselves, and you can say, what do you want? And they point to the actual object. So that's probably where you're going to want to start. So this is going to let you discover what they are actually motivated to continue to communicate for. And it doesn't have to be food, but you want to start with something that's very motivating to them. So it could be a video game, it could be a certain TV show. Obviously my son wants the cookie, so he is going to be involved in this session because he's motivated to get the cookie. So literally I could break this cookie up into small pieces, and I could get a lot of repetitions of communication in order for him to continue to participate, right? I don't know if he's aware that he's on camera making those faces. So you can also do a yes/no. So they maybe are able to discriminate between M&Ms and cookie, and so you can say, do you want cookie? And they would point to yes. Do you want M&M? They would point to no because they want the cookie, right? So there's different ways that you can do this request. And then what he's doing right now is actually called a picture exchange communication system, where he is delivering a picture of M&Ms to me and a request to say that he wants M&Ms. What do you want? All right, you want M&Ms. And it's always good to articulate what they have communicated to you so that they are starting to form that ability to make longer mean length utterances themselves. You always want to emphasize what they have communicated. Oh, you want M&Ms. Here you go. Here are some M&Ms. Using that indirect language stimulation to continue to grow their vocabulary. Okay, so we'll close these back up. When you are developing these different communication back and forth exchanges, you want to make sure that if they're not capable of independently using their fine motor skills to the point, or picking something up and handing it, or like my son did, flicking it, obviously you want to honor some of those communications because you want to make sure that they stay motivated. And at first they might flick it across the table because they don't quite understand what the exchange is going to be. But if they do some type of communication, you want to make sure that they honor it. But let's say they don't have the ability to pick that thing up and hand it to me saying that they want an M&M. Well, then that's when you have a third person come in, and the third person prompts the child from behind. Stand behind, please. And they will then guide their arm to pick up that picture of the M&M, and you want to guide from behind, have them pick it up, and then you place it, have them guide their arm, continue to drop it in there. So that's when you might have a third person help with the exchange. The third person can also help a student navigate toward a particular sentence. So we're trying to build on it, and we were trying to say, I want candy, right? So that person could then gesture to those particular pictures on the screen so that they learn how to build their sentence. So the second teacher would come in and model, I want candy. So they would do that from that child's perspective, I want candy. And then they would pick up the student's hand and have them repeat what they just did. They'd make the pointer finger, and I want candy. There you go. Sorry, my son's participation is not the best this morning. However, that's how you would start to develop some of those communication skills. So there's lots of different ways, right? If they don't have the fine motor skills, use something large and then slowly shrink it down so that they develop that ability to make those finer discriminations, so that they eventually can use a bigger board like this, so that they can have a conversation about lots of different things. This one is particularly about Halloween, so then you can have an ongoing conversation with a student who may not be able to vocalize, but they can still communicate, but they do it within their capabilities, right? So they can use this screen, and the screen can either articulate what this child is pointing to, or they can just do it with a plain piece of paper, and you just watch what they're pointing to, and you can have a conversation about Halloween. Obviously, there's things that you can do, again, yes or no, right? So, do you want cookie? And the child can say yes or no. So they're looking at no, so that would be a no, right? Do you want M&Ms? Yes, right? So you can use the yes or no to work on abilities to communicate. Or if their primary mode of communication is sign language, right, you can also model this for them. So you say, I want more. I don't know the specific sign language for candy, but if they were to then imitate what I just did, I
want nothing.
You don't want any more? Okay. Can you model it, though? Can you imitate what I'm doing? I want. No, look at
nothing.
me. Want more.
Nothing.
That'll be all done. All done? Okay. So that is some ways that you can start to develop some communication, or the ability to request, or the ability to demand. You're going to need a child to be able to discriminate, so they can look at two different things and receptively see what they're seeing. You're going to need to identify what their selection response is. So is it a point? Is it just a general grab? Can they pick it up and hand it to you? Do they use sign language? Is that their mode of communication? And you're going to want to make sure that you've identified some really motivating things, right? Movies, candy, drinks, things that the kids really like in order to start those communication back and forth that you want them to want to engage with you. And so those are things you're going to want to identify before you start. And you might want to have a third person available so that they can prompt from behind to get the student to understand the process of, I do these things, I get what I want. I do these things with a communication partner, and I can start to get what I need and what I want from a communication partner. And that is how you develop a request or a demand. Thank you.